This time of year, a good hoodie is absolutely essential. But it's tough to find one that will last through the season. That's why the American Giant Classic Full Zip Hoodie is made to last a lifetime. So you can count on it to bring you comfort and warmth year after year. Slate Magazine called it the greatest hoodie ever made. And from cotton to zipper, it's made right here in the USA. With timeless style, heavyweight fleece, a double-lined hood, and reinforced elbow patches, you can depend on it for years to come. Snag the hoodie that will bring you comfort for life, the American Giant Classic Full Zip, and save 20% off your first order at american-giant.com when you use code CLASSIC24 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order at american-giant.com, code CLASSIC24.
If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Number 2, Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, presented by Gulf Coast Office Products. All your printing, scanning, copying needs, Gulf Coast Office Products. I mentioned this in the first hour, but I went to breakfast with Trey Beal from Gulf Coast Office Products this morning. That guy knows a lot about printers, copiers, and scanners. Like a lot. No matter what vertical market you're in, Gulf Coast Office Product has clients in that industry. They know the needs. You may not know the needs. He was talking about some PDF feature that one of the copiers has that people aren't aware of that makes PDFs available to be opened for decades to come. Sometimes now you get to one and you can't because it's not compatible. He knows a lot. So if you don't know exactly what it is that happens with your printer, scanner, copier, and why you have the equipment that you do, call Gulf Coast Office Products and make sure that you got what you need, because it's all about efficiency. Oftentimes it's about dollars and cents, and they can help you out at Gulf Coast Office Products. They're online at gcopnet.com. Mickey Loomis spoke with the local media today down in New Orleans. And he did so for a very, very long time, addressed a lot of different situations. Certainly the firing of Dennis Allen came up. Certainly the coaching search came up. And the future of the organization was something that he talked about a lot. And we're going to go through a lot of this sound because I think while not all of it not all of it inspires a ton of confidence, quite frankly, I think it's interesting to hear what he has to say. Obviously, he's not going to divulge everything that's going on. You're not going to get a ton of new, juicy information as they conduct a coaching search. They are doing a pretty good job publicly of letting you know who they're interviewing and when. But I thought that some of the answers were interesting. He gave an opening statement about this head coaching search that's now been going on for a week.
Look, we're in the middle of this coaching search that's been consuming all of our time for the last week and a half or so, and I don't have a lot of comments on it. I'm not going to talk about any individual candidates. We're early in that process. We've had a few Zoom interviews, and we'll have a few more. But so one of the things that's a result of that is that we haven't spent a lot of time reflecting upon the last season. We haven't gone through our player evaluations yet. So I know you're going to have a lot of questions, some of which I can't really answer.
So that's kind of, he set the stage. Going, all right, I'm not going to tell you everything, but we're taking our time with this and we're making it happen. But the question was about, like, okay, who's involved with this? Who's calling these shots?
Look, we've got most of our football people in it. Michael Parrington, Jeff, myself, Kai, Dave Ziegler and Randy are also involved. You know, they're former general managers. They have a lot of experience in our league. And so it's really that group of people that are going through, the details and the process with me.
And you understand who some of those names, like Kai Harley, I don't think is going to be super involved in picking the coach. He's the finances guy. He's the guy that makes those decisions there. You certainly got Dave Ireland, who's in charge of a lot of the drafting. But you've also, as he mentioned, got a couple of names that I thought were interesting. You're talking about Dave Ziegler, who's a personnel advisor that was hired to help with the draft in 2024. Like, he's been he started his career as a scout with the Broncos. He's worked with the Patriots. He's been the GM of the Las Vegas Raiders. Like, he's involved. You've got Miller as well is involved. Like, and so the question is, like, what are those two guys doing, and how are they helping you, considering that they've had that job, they've been in that seat before?
Look, they're talented, experienced people. You know, Dave was with New England for a good period of time, and then with the Raiders for a shorter period of time. He's got a lot of experience. Comes from a different, line, I guess is the right way to describe it, than the rest of us. Randy, you guys know that I've known him for a long, long time. He's had experience, and look, they're doing all kinds of things for us, and I really value their viewpoint.
That's all about, like, what resources the Saints are putting into getting a new coach. But there's the second part of this is that there's a future of the franchise with that coach that involves a roster that, by my estimation, is one of the worst in the NFL in terms of talent level, cost, and age. You're old. You don't have any Pro Bowlers, not even close to having all pros, and you're $70 million over the cap now, with Ramchick going down closer to $50 million over the cap. But I mean, when you consider that situation, no Pro Bowlers, $50 million over the cap, and old, like, that's not good. So the question was asked to Mickey Loomis, like, what do you think of the state of this roster moving into 2025?
That's part of what we haven't done yet is really look back and evaluate where we're at from a personnel standpoint. Obviously, this was a tough season, not what we expected. What jumps out is the amount of injuries, and we've got to do a deep dive into that. Are there things that are preventable? Are there things that we missed in the evaluation process, for example? So all that is work that needs to be done. Rebuild it means different things to different people. I think that you can turn around a season pretty quickly in the NFL. We've seen it with other teams, and there's a lot of good things on our roster, and there's some things that we need to adjust and fill in. Part of that is going to be the viewpoint and the vision that the new head coach has.
I'm just not sure that I can get on board with there's a lot of really good things about our roster. I understand that Mickey Loomis cannot get to the podium and say, yeah, we're terrible. Like, we won 5 games. We got a bunch of guys on this team that can't play, and it's a disaster. Like, it's not realistic. I think it's what some fans would like to hear him say. You can't do that. But I'm curious how much truth is in that comment that I like a lot of things about our roster. Then the question was, there's a follow-up. It's like, is there more change needed than you initially thought?
I'm positive. I'm glass half full at all times. I see a lot of things. Even in a 5-12 season, I see a lot of things that were positive that we can build on. So I'm on the side of, man, this thing can go the other direction pretty quickly.
I just don't know. I could try to come up with the big positives. You got a couple of young tackles that played okay. Like, that's okay. You used the tight end pretty well late in the season. Foster Moreau and Juwan Johnson had some catches. Brian Brzee rushes the passer well. I don't know if he's a great run defender, but he can get back there and sack the quarterback from the interior, which is hard to find. I don't have a lot. You had a nice year for your field goal kicker. I thought that you had a pretty good year from Blake Grupe. That's kind of where I am on, like, the really good things about the Saints at this point. There's not very much to grab onto there. So he mentioned at the end of that bite a new coach having the same vision, and I'm curious what that exactly means. Because it sounds to me on the outside that he's looking for somebody to come in and do things the Saints way. I want somebody to come in and shake up the way the Saints do things. And so the question was asked, does a new coach have to have the same vision that you have at the top of the organization?
I think that one of the things that's really important is to be able to have a collective vision and be on the same page organizationally. Ownership, GM, coach, coaches, personnel department. We have to have the same collective vision. And we'll get to that. All of these candidates are going to have strengths and weaknesses, and we've got our strengths and weaknesses and blind spots, and so we just have to go through that and figure out, and we will, who the best fit is for us.
There's not a lot of meat on that bone, but you understand, I want disruption. I want a disruptor. I think that Dan Campbell went to Detroit and was disruptive. I think that he changed the way that the Lions have done things for a long time. I can't point to them specifically, but you understand that has been such an awful organization, and for him to create that culture is really impressive. And so, no, I'm not there every day in Detroit to tell you exactly what these changes are, but it feels like he made big-time changes. I don't want someone to come in and kind of operate the same way the Saints have done things for a while. I want someone to come in and do things completely differently. And that's going to be challenging the power structure. And the two bites I want to play here to finish these segments are talking about that power structure. And one is ownership, which he mentioned you got to be aligned with. It's Gail Benson. And then you've got Mickey Loomis. And there have been reports that they weren't necessarily aligned on when to move on from Dennis Allen, and that Gail Benson finally looked at him and said, go fire this guy. You just lost to Carolina. And they did. And the question was asked to Mickey, were you and Gail Benson aligned on the decision to fire Dennis Allen?
Yeah, I don't want to get into that other than, look, it was an organization decision, and I'm part of the organization.
I think that answer tells you something. Now, I'm editorializing here, which you can do on a talk show, but I think it's evident there that no, because it would be easy to say, yes, we were aligned. It was time to change direction. It was disappointing. We have a great relationship with Dennis. We wish him well in the future and thank him for all the things that he did, but it was time. He didn't say that. He said, well, it's an organization decision, and I'm part of the organization. So to me, I'm reading into that no, he didn't think it was time, and that is really troubling. And now the question has to be asked, do you regret standing behind Dennis Allen as long as you did?
No, I don't regret any of it. Dennis Allen's a really good football coach. Yeah, so I don't regret any of that.
And I think that's fine. I think that Dennis Allen is a really good football coach, if you use it in that term. I think he's a really good defensive coordinator. I think we have a lot of evidence to suggest he's not a good head coach. And the injuries will always be part of the story. But I don't think they're the whole story. And you heard earlier in that bite that he kind of felt like he saw a rash of injuries and they got to do something about that. But I think that there's more than just injuries, because I think that the culture in the locker room that fractured is on the head coach. I think that the defense underperforming this year is on the head coach. I think the decision to elevate Pete Carmichael last year was on the head coach. And I don't think that any of that was any good. And so I think that Dennis Allen's got strengths. I don't think he's a great head coach. And I think that Mickey appearing or giving the appearances that he still stood behind him and wanted to keep him around is troubling at best. There's still much more to chat about with Mickey Loomis's sound. So let's take a time out. There are more that I want to get to, including I got a text from someone who was in that room. I'll just keep it at that said that Loomis didn't know what draft pick the Saints have. I found that to be kind of funny. It's not that big a deal if you're the 8th pick or the 9th pick. I'm sure they'll figure that out by the time the draft comes around. But it is humorous to me that everybody kind of knows where the Saints pick and the general manager wasn't quite aware of where that was. But there's more sound that I want to get to, so we'll take a time out. We'll come back with some more of that. Denton Day will join us at 2:30 to talk a little bit about the Commanders and the college football semifinals and the final to come. That's all coming up on this Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, highlandig.com. Look, there obviously is just a tragedy going on out in Southern California right now with these wildfires. And there are billions and billions in losses. They're going to have to be covered by insurance, and that may impact premiums all over the country. If you are a little nervous about that and want to make sure that you're being taken care of properly, the Highland Insurance Group is a call that you need to make. And once again, I want to tell you, they're not a magic bullet. They're not here to cut 18% off your property premium. That's not realistic. But they are an independent broker. They've got access to dozens of markets, and they can shop your insurance around and make sure that it's in the right place with the right coverage at the right price. Insurance is a volatile game, and they understand that at the Highland Insurance Group, and they want to help you out. Jonathan Carbo is fantastic to work with. He's been a great partner of our show here, and he's a true pro on the insurance side of things. Give him a call and trust him to get your business or your personal insurance correctly handled. It's the Highland Insurance Group. You can find them online at highlandig.com. They're right here in Baton Rouge. Highland Insurance Group, highlandig.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Hope your work week's off to a good start. Thanks for hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. We're brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. Denton Day coming up in 12 minutes. We're going through sound from Mickey Loomis's press conference today down in New Orleans. It's a vital offseason for New Orleans in terms of picking a new head coach. You've got to hit with a bunch of draft picks. You've got to decide what you're going to do at the quarterback position, and you're starting a new era. And I think that it's just a vital year for New Orleans. I don't think that it's going to be very productive in terms of wins and losses come the fall, but I do think that there are changes that are going to be made that could be impactful for a decade if they do things the right way over the course of the next 6 months here. So, talking about some of the sound that Mickey Loomis gave earlier today. And the first we're going to talk about is there impatience after not being a playoff team for the last 4 seasons down in New Orleans?
I think I'm still pretty patient. You know, I understand that, look, the results are the results, and you can't ignore the results. But you also have to look beyond the results sometimes and understand the reasons behind the symptoms, and some are in our control, some aren't. And so, look, we have to do the best job we can with the things that are in our control, and we have to understand the things that aren't. Look, I know you guys, nobody wants to hear this, but this injury thing was a big deal this year, a really big deal. Prevented us from winning games, prevented us from being competitive in games, and so we have to get a handle on that more than anything else.
I just don't like that sound. I just don't like it. I don't hear any of that out of Detroit right now. Why? Because they've built depth and talent, and they've overcome it with great coaching. And I just don't care to hear about the injuries. We all know the offensive line got hurt. We all know your wide receivers got hurt. We all know your quarterback got hurt. Like, we got it. But the problem is, if Loomis thinks that the injuries are 85% and the ineptitude everywhere else is 15%, he needs to flip them. Because everybody in the NFL is dealing with injuries. The Saints had a terrible rash of them, but you cannot lean on that and keep doing the things you've been doing in an organization. You're not drafting well enough. Your salary cap situation is atrocious. Your talent level is not good enough. Like, that is, you would not, in my estimation, have had a Pro Bowler if everybody stayed healthy. Maybe Eric McCoy, maybe Marshawn Lattimore, maybe, I mean, that's Kamara. That's not an injury situation. That's a talent situation. And that's a big problem. And I'm hopeful that he's not leaning too hard on this injury crutch, because that doesn't work. Now let's talk about blind spots in the organization. Loomis was asked about that, which is kind of, in my estimation, a nice way to say, like, you realize you are doing some stuff that's not very good?
I don't think I really want to get into the specifics of that. I'm just saying that in general, all of us, we have strengths and weaknesses. And so, you know, you have to marry up and be able to compensate for those things. You know, we talked about one right here. I'm maybe overly patient. So, you know, we have to have some people in here that are more, less patient, I guess. Proactive. Let me say proactive as opposed to less patient.
I don't like that sound either. You're kind of admitting that you're not proactive enough to do this. Now, I will say that I like the term patience, because that's what it's going to take here for New Orleans. They've been impatient for good reason for a decade now at the back end of Breeze's career. Now it does take some patience. Now you are going to have to use your draft picks and wait for those guys to develop. You can't just go sign some free agents and restructure all the contracts and kick the can down the road some more and do gymnastics to get just $2 under the salary cap and see what works. No, you got to chill. You got to develop some young players. And that does take some patience. So that I do like. Don't tell me that you got to find somebody that's more proactive. You can be that. You can be proactive. Let's talk about draft picks. And that's something that Mickey Loomis was asked about.
Oh, I'd always take more draft picks if we could get them. But look, I like where we're at. And I like our history of drafting too. I think we've got a really good history of drafting. Again, when you have a new coaching staff, now you've got to recalibrate and adjust not the evaluation process, but what you're looking for. And so that's going to be a lot of work. Once we get a coaching staff hired, to make sure that we're on the same page relative to the types of players, not the types, but the things that they want their players to do, and making sure that we're bringing guys that can do what they need.
Beck, I'm going to ask that you play the first line of that soundbite once again so everyone can hear this.
Oh, I'd always take more draft picks if we could get them, but...
Well, would you, Mick? You would always take more draft picks? Let's just do a search here. They have traded up and traded away draft picks 26 times in the last decade. You know how many times they have traded back for those more draft picks that he says he'll always take? 0. Not once. Not ever. So what are we talking about here? You will always take more draft. In fact, you never take more draft picks. You never take more draft. You always give the draft picks away. And I'm not here to tell you that the draft has been awesome. It maybe is awesome if you want to include Zach Bond, who's an All-Pro in Philly. Maybe awesome if you want to include Trey Hendrickson, who's an All-Pro in Cincinnati. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Caden Ellis, and a lot of those guys doing some good things elsewhere. But I'm looking at some pretty bad draft picks over the last 5 years. I just can't get over that I'll always take more draft picks. You never take more draft picks. So that part kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but maybe he's turned over a new leaf and they will take more draft picks this year. This is one of the most important drafts in the history of the franchise coming up. They've got a lot of picks. They've got a lot of early picks, and they're going to have to hit on some guys. And then you're going to have to develop them, and you can't have happen what happened with Zach Bond, where you draft him and can't get him in the right spot, and then he leaves, and he's an All-Pro. And Mickey was actually asked about Zach Bond and how that worked out.
Well, look, it's not something that you like, that's for sure. But I understand the circumstances behind it. Look, we tried to sign, Zach Bond, but he was looking for, opportunity to get more playing time. And under the last, system, that wasn't going to be as likely. So, look, I'm excited that we drafted those players and they've had success. They were identified as talented players, but obviously it's not great when they go and have success someplace else. That hasn't happened a lot in our tenure here, but it does happen. And no different than when we get somebody from another team and they have success. Sometimes it's circumstantial. But no, when you draft good players, you want to keep them.
So the moral of all of this and what I've drawn from it is I'm going to go back to my buddy Shea Dixon's quote on recruiting. Watch what the recruits do, not what they say. I'm not all that interested in what Mickey Loomis says. I've just told you that I didn't love some of the sound from today, but I don't really care about press conferences. Y'all know that about me. It's weird that I'm in the media and I handle sound bites and write stories and I deal with sound bites, and that's part of the things that we do. But I care about wins and losses. I tell you all the time that I covered coaches who handle the media and give them all this access and say things quite literally in their open books. I've covered coaches that you don't know anything, and I don't really care. Just go win. And so I don't care if Mickey Loomis, talks a lot about injuries or says they're going to do this or that. All I really care about is if they show a willingness to go in a different direction. We'll see what happens with a new coach. We'll see how they handle this coming draft. We'll see what kind of free agent contracts they do or don't. We'll see what kind of restructures they do or don't. And we'll see if there has been a fundamental shift in the way the New Orleans Saints are doing business. I thought that the last offseason did indicate that they were slowing down on spending. Yeah, I didn't love the Kamara deal. It's done. It's not the end of the world. It's not that expensive, and he looks like he can still play. But that was really all they did. The Derek Carr decision is going to be a big one. Like, there's a lot of stuff that has to be done, and I will judge the Saints based far more on what they do than what Mickey Loomis has to say in front of a microphone. But I don't love some of the things that he said, and I'm just waiting anxiously to see if there's a change in philosophy moving forward. That's all from Mickey Loomis today. He was down there in New Orleans speaking with the local media. Ross Jackson's got a piece coming up at LouisianaSports.net with the top 5 takeaways from the press conference that Mickey Loomis gave earlier today. So you'll want to check that out for free over at LouisianaSports.net. We'll step aside. We'll come back, talk some college football and some Commanders with our guy Denton Day, SiriusXM College Football Overtime. That's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Check them out online. Boudreaux'Electrical.com. Get the peace of mind that comes with that Generac home standby generator from Boudreaux's Electrical. Neil and Melissa have been giving that peace of mind to people in South Louisiana for 40 years. Every single Generac home standby generator they sell you is going to come with a 7 to 10-year warranty. The installations are going to be done by full-time Boudreaux's Electrical employees. They've got as many as 10 techs out on a given day doing installations as well as repairs if that needs to be done. How do you know if there needs to be a repair? Well, Boudreaux's Electrical will know because they monitor your generator remotely 24/7. If there's an issue, they come fix it so that when you need that generator to power your home, it is up and running. There's no VIP memberships, no extra fees. Everybody's just going to be treated like the valued customer that they are. That's the promise at Boudreaux's Electrical. Give them a call at 985-397-1562, 985-397-1562, or in Gonzales at 225-300-9389. It's Boudreaux's Electrical, Boudreaux'Electrical.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Every Monday during football season, our guy Denton Day, SiriusXM's College Football Overtime, with us talking the biggest stories in college football. And we're at the end of the road there with a final that's coming up a week from tonight. We'll certainly talk about the semifinals. But as we know, big Washington Commanders fan Denton Day, and they are moving on to the divisional round of the playoffs. Was texting Denton last night. Guy was fired up. I'm imagining still fired up hours later on this Monday. How we feeling?
It's a great day to be a Commanders fan. Mondays are always tough for most people, but it's a lot easier when your team gets its first playoff victory in nearly 20 years. The last time they won a playoff game, I was 10. So it's been a while. I'm very, very fired up still, as is literally everyone in this area.
How was your confidence level when Jaden got the ball with 4 minutes to go?
It was on 1,000. We do a show during the game on local radio here. It's kind of like a watch-along, if you will, like live interaction sort of stuff. And, obviously you feel like the jitters of playoff football, but at the same time, I wasn't really nervous at all yesterday because I know who's at quarterback. And we've been so used to this as a fan base here because the last 6 games have been decided in the final 20, 30 seconds of the football game. There's nobody that I trust more in the NFC right now than Jaden Daniels in a late game scenario. And the only person in the NFL I trust more than him right now is Mahomes, which is insane to think of, but it's true.
Look, I've got a lot. I mean, what did you think of the decision to go for both of those 4th downs? The one that didn't pay off right before the Mayfield fumble, and then the one that did pay off with the touchdown.
They wanted to be aggressive, and I think generally speaking, Dan Quinn did say this after the game. They wanted to be aggressive, but they didn't want to go crazy. I think when you have a 4th and short, which most of those were, anything really closer than 4 with Jaden Daniels, I'm going to give you the green light because it's him versus the defense, and I'm going to take him in a lot of those. And if you just do the general analytics of it, they got 14 points off of it rather than, a couple field goals, which would have been 6. So you can look back on certain ones, and there was one in the 4th quarter where I thought maybe he should have kicked it, but then you get that fumble, you score right back. So I don't really hate the decision. I would prefer him to not go, super trigger happy like Dan Lanning against Washington last year, Lane Kiffin, whenever he plays Nick Saban. I don't want him to go super insane against Detroit this upcoming weekend, but I didn't hate the decision making.
How do you feel about their chances in the Motor City?
As long as you got Jaden Daniels, I feel pretty all right. I know that line's pretty big at 8.5, but if you got Jaden, I feel pretty all right. And God bless the Detroit Lions. They're going to be tasked with stopping this offense. No one has really been able to do so this whole season, so good luck to them.
What's the feeling up there about the next 4 years? We talk a lot about that rookie deal, and obviously the bill came up for Burrow as it does in every organization, and that bill will come up for Jaden in Washington, but it's not for 4 more years. What's the urgency level to push the envelope over the next 3 years to try to get this thing over the top with an MVP-level quarterback that's on a cheap deal?
It's incredibly high because they have so much cap space. I think they're 3rd in the NFL this offseason in terms of cap space available, and it's north of $100 million. I mean, they got a lot of wiggle room to put players around him that can be really good. You have a wide receiver 1 in Terry. Wide receiver 2 last night was Diami, and he picked a great day to have the best day of his career. But it's also very clear that they need somebody else, whether that's T. Higgins or a disgruntled Tyreek Hill, whoever. I think the urgency is high because they realize, 1, just how good he is, but then 2, that Dan Quinn said this offseason this was a recalibration, not a rebuild. We scoffed at that. We laughed at it. How funny is that? Now they were right. I mean, this was a recalibration, not a rebuild, so you got to be able to maximize having him on a small deal, because let me tell you, that deal is going to be massive. I mean, you're going to be looking at the very least, I would say, if Dak got 60 this year, and we're looking 4 years down the road, I would say conservatively, you're looking at potentially $70, $75 million per year on Jane Daniels' contract.
Whew. Good to be Jaden. Good to be a Commanders fan as well as they head to Detroit this weekend. We'll certainly be watching from down here in South Louisiana. Let's talk some football. Saw the semifinals back over the weekend. Let's talk about Ohio State. That's an impressive win by a talented team.
Yeah, they looked really good, but I was also very impressed, Hunt, with the way that Texas played in the trenches. I would not say the same about their quarterback. I mean, I thought the wheel routes were impressive for Texas's offense. There wasn't a whole lot else that I thought was great. I mean, if that's the way that Quinn Ewers is going to go out, strip sack, fumble recovery to end his career at Texas, unfortunately, that does feel kind of fitting because they were on they scored there. That game was completely different. You put a lot more pressure on Ohio State, and it always felt like Texas was just a step or two behind Ohio State offensively. But I did think their defense played really well. This was a little bit more humanizing, I think, for Ohio State. They're still the best team in college football. They're still the pick, I would say, to win the national championship, but they definitely looked a lot more human this week against Texas. So I guess if you're in the business of moral victories, you have that going for you for the Longhorns.
And then the other one, Penn State and Notre Dame, big brands, starving fan bases that are trying to get back to the top of the mountain for the first time since the late 80s. And it was a classic football game. I enjoyed the heck out of watching it. What did you make of the back and forth between those two teams?
Yeah, that was a really good football game. We had Texas, Arizona State, which was, potentially one of the all-time college football playoff matchups. That wasn't that, but that was just an enjoyable football game. I liked watching it. They felt very evenly matched. I didn't think that Riley Leonard was going to be the best quarterback in that football game, and he was. I mean, Drew Aller, we're 2 years now into his career thinking, when is the Drew Aller game going to come? I just don't think it's going to arrive. I don't know that there is that Drew Aller game that we've all been looking for, 250, 3 tutties, no interceptions, and doing it against a good defense. I just don't know that is in the cards for that guy at quarterback. I think Riley Leonard played really well. I don't know what he's going to do against Ohio State, but I thought he was a gamer. And if you got a gamer on your side, you at least open the door for the potential of something sensational. And Marcus Freeman, by all accounts, is just the greatest dude in the world. So I'm happy for him and the success that Notre Dame has had, even if I do think that they're going to get bludgeoned next week.
We'll talk about that on next week's show. But I got 2 Notre Dame-centric questions. I was surprised to look at the box score and see that Riley Leonard had thrown for 265 or whatever it was. It didn't feel like that watching the game. It just feels like you said he's a gamer and he's going to run for 4 yards when he needs 4 yards. And how do you assess his play? I know you said that you thought he played well, but it's not explosive. It's just kind of productive, I guess I would say.
Yeah, it's not explosive. It's not sexy. It's not like some of the quarterback play that we've seen in years past where you're throwing the ball around the yard and it looks beautiful. Even some of the throws that he connected on, they're not the greatest looking throws in the world, but he just finds a way to get the ball to where it needs to go to. And then in the blink of an eye, as you mentioned, you look at the box score and you're like, wait a second, this guy has over 200 yards. And then he went, even higher than that, which is not something he'd done a ton. And you look at their receivers, they don't really have a lot of them. I just think he does a good job of getting the ball to the places it needs to go in the clutch. In the first quarter and second quarter and third quarter, maybe not as much, but I do feel like when he needs to, he is a reliable source to do that for Notre Dame.
The local angle that's been playing a little bit since Friday is this an indictment on Brian Kelly? And I said my piece on it, but I want your thoughts on watching Marcus Freeman get Notre Dame to this point, winning 3 playoff games, playing for a national championship. Do you think that is there a Brian Story Kelly line to be had, or is not? It doesn't look good. It's not a great look when you leave a certain place to win a national championship
and then the place you go to is on the outside looking into the college football playoff, and the place you left is in the national championship a couple years later. I don't think it's the greatest of looks, but I don't know that it's totally fair to compare that now, given how Notre Dame gets to the college football playoff versus how LSU is and their path would be getting to the college football playoff. I think anyone that suggests that Notre Dame has a harder road to the 12-team format outside of LSU is nuts. I mean, Notre Dame, you could argue, has the easiest road. They don't got to play a conference championship, and they don't really have to run through anyone in the SEC. So I don't think it's the worst of looks for Brian Kelly, but it's certainly not a good look. And I do think that adds a little bit of pressure to what LSU has to do this year. I mean, if you're not in the 12-team dance next year, if the rumblings aren't happening, Hunt, and maybe you know this better than I, obviously, but if the rumblings aren't happening, they're going to start happening in terms of people questioning why he is the head man there.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure that's going to be on this team, and it's built partly because of the 3 years that haven't produced a playoff, but partly because they've gone and gotten a bunch of talent. And I think they're going to be picked in the top 4 of the SEC, which generally speaking should be a playoff team. And I think they're going to be a favorite in a lot of games. That Clemson game to start the season is just very, very poorly placed. I would much rather they play the Citadel instead of Clemson in that first game. But here we are. They're going to South Carolina to open the season. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. We'll preview the national title game next week when we get you on, Denton. Good luck to your Commanders in Detroit this weekend.
Yeah, hopefully we're previewing an NFC championship as well. Hunt, I appreciate it, man.
You got it. That's Denton Day, SiriusXM's College Football Overtime with us every single Monday, just talking a little bit of ball. It's cool to watch and live kind of vicariously through the folks there at Washington. I mentioned this in talking about Notre Dame and Penn State last week as well. The only team that I truly pull for all year long that has never won the whole thing while I've been watching is LSU basketball. I've seen the Cubs win the World Series. I've seen LSU win a national championship in baseball and football. And so there's something special about seeing something you've never seen before. And there's never going to be a baseball or a football title that quite feels like the first one you ever got. And I love watching fans experience that. And there's a ton of Notre Dame and Penn State fans that have never seen it. And there's certainly a ton of Washington Commanders fans that have never seen it. They haven't won the Super Bowl since I believe the early 90s. So maybe that was the late 80s. I don't know. I was born in 88. It was something around there. But there's a lot of fans that have never seen this kind of success level. And I'm not here to tell you that I think the Commanders are going to win the Super Bowl this year. I don't think that. But it's cool to watch the excitement that's going through. And I see Denton on Twitter, and PFT commenter from Barstool is a big Washington fan. And to see those guys, Scott Van Pelt is a DC guy. It's interesting to watch. And so I'm enjoying that while enjoying watching Jaden play some football as well. So they'll go to Detroit and take on the 1 seed, a banged up 1 seed in the Lions coming up this weekend. All right, I'll step aside. When we come back, we'll play Take It or Leave It, and we'll be done on a Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com. Genesis offers a luxury experience at a reasonable price. That's it to its core. Go by the dealership and experience the luxury vehicles. They are phenomenal. They've got all types from the sedans all the way up to the SUVs, and they're phenomenal. To get behind their brand ambassadors, will walk you through the entire process. If you're one of those folks that says, I really don't like going to car dealerships. I don't like that experience. I don't like dealing. I get it, but you're not going to have that type of experience at Genesis of Baton Rouge. You're going to feel like a guest, not a customer, and you don't even have to go. They'll come to you. You go to genesisofbatonrouge.com. You can see every car that's on the lot. You see one you'd like to test drive, let them know. They'll bring it right to you. Bring it to the house. They'll bring it to your work. You can go behind the wheel with one of their brand ambassadors, drive around, and see for yourself the difference in driving that Genesis. Every car on the lot is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. They're at Airline and Piku near Women's Hospital. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Congratulations to our grand prize winner for the College Football Bowl Pick'em Challenge, Mark Mancuso. Mark wins $1,000 cash and a $200 gift card from Hooters. Thanks for playing the Hooters College Football Bowl Pick'em Challenge presented by Yingling. And the NFL is on 104.5 ESPN, the playoffs, every single game. You can tune in this Saturday when the Chiefs host the Texans at 3:30, and then the Commanders and Jaden Daniels and Lions at 7 p.m. And, of course, we will also have the National Championship, Ohio State and Notre Dame. That is next Monday at 6:30. All of that on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Commanders have the late game again this weekend?
Yep.
I don't want that. Give me
Why?
the afternoon slate.
Why?
Because I want them to play earlier.
Why?
I don't need to stay up till 11:30.
Hunt.
I got a job.
We all have jobs, Hunt. You can't stay up till 11 to watch an NFL game.
I can. I don't want to.
That sounds like a pretty old man.
Oh, they're on
take
Saturday.
from you.
It's a Saturday game.
I said Saturday, Hunt. By the way, you obviously weren't listening to the promo.
No, I don't ever listen to this.
Except whenever I mess up, you hear that. And
I do.
You ask me how I would grade it.
I do. That's enjoyable for me. I enjoy that part of the job.
See, if you wonder why I make fun of your fantasy golf picks last week, that this is why. Okay,
Missed another cut. Just atrocious out of the gates.
Horrible.
Awful Hawaii swing. We got to get it going for the American Express.
And guess what? This is a little behind the curtain. People, a Hunt texted me. Oh yeah, well, live golf fantasy is going to be starting up soon. So little does Hunt.
You will never see live fantasy golf.
Yeah, you won't. But now that Hunt has mentioned that to me, he's now going to be getting texts from me every week about the live events and who I think he should pick for the live fantasy. You're going to have to block my number then.
I will block you.
It's going to happen.
You're not sending me about Chase Koepka.
Well, I don't even know if he's actually in the league anymore. But they got some new young.
What's your qualification,
talent.
Chase? My brother's really good. You're in. Here's $1 billion. Go play some golf.
I don't think they gave him $1 billion. That might be a bit.
I think they gave him $1 billion.
I don't think so.
They gave everybody $1 billion. Let's see. Texans and Chiefs, the early game Saturday. Commanders Lions late, and then we are TBD on who the Eagles play Sunday, and then the Ravens Bills on Sunday afternoon. That is good.
That is good. The poor Texans, though, I mean, they can't get a night game to save their lives. I mean, they just make it to the divisional 2 years in a row, and they can't get a night game. Actually, I think last year they may have played at night, and I can't remember who they played. They lost. I'm not sure, but 3:30 on a Saturday. Probably not going to be. I mean, there's going to be a decent amount of people watching, obviously. But
I like the Lions. It's a bummer I have to pull against them on Saturday.
Yeah,
I will.
Sucks.
I like the Lions, but I'm going to pull against them. All right, take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
Just take it.
Alrighty, first one here. We talked about this last year, I think around the summer, but former NBA player Jonte Porter, he will be former. I don't think he's going to get back in the league after what happened, but some more information has been revealed about the betting scandal he was involved in. And Jonte was texting people at halftime during NBA games, telling bettors about what he was going to be doing, whether or not he was going to be playing much more. Said he wasn't. Told people he wasn't starting in the second half, and but if it's garbage time, I will shoot 1 million shots. Texting bettors at halftime. Take it or leave it.
I'm gonna leave it alone. That's incredible. Like that is so stupid. I can't even deal with it. I can't even comment. That is so dumb. I can't comment.
I don't understand. Like, there's always a lot of things that just
it's
really.
It's like a bad movie.
It is. It's like there's always things that happen that I just can't believe, and the level of unbelievable that this is just it's off the charts.
It's not. But this is not even as bad as the college baseball where the guy was
still
yelling
not,
at them to take my bet because I know
that is the worst. I don't know if you can get worse than that.
That's so bad. Give me something else.
All right, next one. Mike McCarthy, fired by the Dallas Cowboys, according to multiple sources. McCarthy to the Saints. Take it or leave it.
I would take it.
I'll take it.
All my friends on the text chain today said it absolutely not. Terrible hire. Only won the one Super Bowl with Rodgers like 15 years ago. He went 12-3 3 straight years a couple years ago. I think he's a pretty good football coach. I'm not guaranteeing the Saints are going to win 2 Super Bowls with him, but you could do worse than Mike McCarthy.
You could certainly do worse. There's no question. He's a proven head coach
that wins a lot of games.
He does, and there are a lot of other guys that people are talking about that haven't been head coaches before, have never done it. So it's a little bit more of a safe hire, which of course the Saints we've accustomed to them making safe decisions. So you would think that Mike McCarthy would be a top candidate for the Saints. Last one here. D1 Baseball released its preseason top 25.
Yes, I saw that.
I think we all know who number 1 probably was, which is Hunt's arch nemesis, Texas A&M.
Yes.
And number 2 was Virginia. The Cavaliers, apparently a pretty good outfit this year. And number 3, LSU. Number 3 in the preseason. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave it.
Leave it alone.
I love the fact that LSU's got a ton of options at the top of the rotation.
It's not defined.
It's not there yet, and I need to see the ace. I need an ace, and I need to see it. So I think they've got real options. I think the top of the list right now is probably Anderson. I think Shores is in the mix, and certainly you feel pretty good about Hyenson as well. But I need to see it. So I'm going to back off that right now. I think LSU's got a really good team. I think they got a real chance to go to Omaha, and once you get there, you figure it out. But I have more confidence in A&M's roster than LSU's right now by a little bit. And we'll see. The SEC is going to be loaded, and we'll have to figure it out. But I'm very much excited to start moving in that direction. We got the first pitch banquet coming up on Thursday. I'll be a small part of that, and we'll start practicing here next week. And I'm going to go out and watch some practice and write about it this year, because I don't think a lot of people want to read a lot of game previews and recaps of LSU's SEC basketball at the moment. So we're going to get some baseball content on the website here in the coming weeks. Looking forward to all
right, well, hey, but we got actually one more here. Just real quick. Apparently, the Cubs actually might be a real good candidate for Sasaki. Apparently, the Padres and Cubs actually might be a better candidate over the Dodgers. Everybody thought the Dodgers were going to be the shoe-in, but Cubs getting Sasaki, obviously, you were going to take that.
I'll take it. The Cubs have become a really popular landing spot for Japanese players. Yu Darvish loves his time there. Seiya likes it there a lot. So they built a nice little pipeline there. Soda had a great year, yeah. So I'm all for that. Give me good players. I need more good players. I need baseball. That's what I need.
We need it.
Need baseball. It's a little cold outside. There's not a lot of winning going on in South Louisiana right now.
Nope.
I need some winning. I would like some baseball winning, and we'll get to that here in fairly short order. That's going to do it for a Monday show presented by Gulf Coast Office Products. All your printing, scanning, copying needs. Check them out at Gulf Coast Office Products, GCOPnet.com. Missed any of the show today? Check it out on demand, wherever you find your sound. Of course, on YouTube, you search Hunt Palmer Show. Like, subscribe, rate, review. All that helps us each and every day. Y'all have a great Monday. Watch some football. We're back same time, same place tomorrow. Matt's about to drive you home on AFR. It's been the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.